Looking at the back page of our worksheet, number 4, we're going to have, once again, a compound sentence. And I know that because here's my comma, but. So I'm already anticipating 2 separate sentences. But I'm also going to introduce what happens when we have an inverted sentence. All right, so this one reads, the Lutheran Youth Group was selling chocolates for Valentine's Day. But within each box was a message about the temptations of hell's damnation. All right. I can make fun of the Lutherans because I used to be one. So there you go. So I'm going to change this over to red because we're talking about Valentine's Day. And so let's take on our 2 separate sentences. The first one, the Lutheran Youth Group was selling chocolates for Valentine's Day. So I'm going to build this one over here, see if I can squeeze this into the space I have. I'm going to start off with my verb, which is was selling. So here's was selling. And in front of that, I just kind of crossed right through that W. In front of that has to be my subject. So I have the Lutheran Youth Group. So group's going to be my main head word. So I'm going to put group here and then start breaking this down. So I'd say it's the group. It's a Lutheran group. It's also the youth group. I kept them separate. I guess you could have Lutheran off of youth or Lutheran youth, but I look at it as it's a Lutheran group, but it's also a youth group. So that's how I have it. Looks like I put 2 O's there, but I really did try to make it a U, so youth. Looks like I misspelled it. Like an idiot. All right, there we go. So the group was selling, and my direct object is chocolates. All right, so here's my direct object. So the group was selling chocolates. And then I have for Valentine's Day. Well, it's right next to chocolates, and you can put them off of chocolates. But if I build this prep phrase off of chocolates, it sounds like they're chocolates just for Valentine's Day, as opposed to maybe they were selling them for Valentine's Day. I was going to put mine here just because I think I can move this around. I could say for Valentine's Day, the Lutheran Youth Group was selling chocolates. I think I can move them around, which is a pretty good sign that prep phrase probably isn't next to the word chocolates particularly, but it can almost be anywhere, and it's probably working as an adverb. So it's for, and I'm going to separate day from Valentine's because there are different days, and Valentine's Day is just simply one. So Valentine's Day. There we go. All right, so this is a nice little pattern 7 here. Subject, action, verb, direct object. Switch gears. Over here I have but. Here's my comma conjunction, but. And then my next sentence says, within each box was a message about the temptations of hell's damnation. Leave it to the Lutherans to ruin things. So here we go, is the word was. Is a nice little verb. So I'm going to try to put this guy here. I'll see if I can fit this in here. So here's my verb was. I'm trying to figure out where I'll put it. Was. And then I'm looking for my subject. Well, looks like box is going to be my subject because it's the noun in front of the word was. But box is sitting in a prep phrase. So I can't choose box. And in front of that's the word but, which is the conjunction. And then all of a sudden I start into the previous sentence. So I'm like, wait a minute. If my verb is here, where's your subject? Well, the subject has to be there. But what if I gave you a weird sentence where the subject's not in front of the verb? So in an inverted sentence, the subject is actually after the verb. So when I say within each box was a message about the temptations of hell's damnation, well, I got to figure out where the subject is. Well, temptations is in a prep phrase and damnation is in a prep phrase. So the only thing I have left over is message, and that becomes my subject. Can you see that message is your subject? What your real sentence is saying is a message about the temptations of hell's damnation was within each box. It's an inverted sentence. Let's add some things to this. So let's say a message about temptations, the temptations, which I've written this sentence. I wrote the sentence like years ago, and I read it now. I'm like, that is probably the dumbest sentence ever. The temptations of hell's damnation. Like, seriously, who is tempted by hell's damnation? Like, ooh, I really hope I'm burning in hell for the rest of my life. That sounds very tempting. I don't know. Maybe it's only me who thinks that is really peculiar, but I'm not sure why I wrote that sentence. There we go. So hell's damnation. But it's the temptation of hell's damnation. Didn't mean to go so fast there. That of is right next to temptations, and it's the temptations of hell's damnation. It's not a message of hell's damnation, but it's the temptation of hell's damnation. All right, seriously, What's wrong with me? Anyway, I had this other prep phrase, which is within each box. So maybe you're tempted to put within each box underneath message, a message within each box. Think about what we have right now. We have a to be verb and we have a subject. If I go subject to be verb, I either have to have an adjective over here or I have to have a noun over here, or I have a pattern one, which says the message was where. And that's how I know within each box is going to sit over here. It has to sit. In order for it to be grammatically correct, I need to have some kind of adverb of time or place in order for it to work. So I'm going to say within box, each box. This is a pattern one. Once again, a pattern one has a to be verb and it goes into an adverb of time or place, tells us where the message was. If I tried sliding that underneath the word message, I would have basically a sentence which reads, a message about the temptations of hell's damnation within each box was. Like, no, it was within each box. So this is really telling me where it was. So this is a pattern one up here. This is a pattern 7. And lastly, I have this comma but, which we're going to join. Let's find something else. We'll use an orange. And so we're going to go from verb. Once again, as long as it touches verb to verb, that's a really bad dotted line. Look at that. Yeesh. And then the word but is going to sit here on that dotted line, joining those two together. All right. So on this worksheet, we've accomplished both a compound sentence. We've looked at an imperative sentence. We've seen what happens when we have no conjunction at all, but a semicolon. We also saw what happens when we have a contraction. And lastly, back here, a compound sentence, but one of those sentences was inverted, and we had to hunt for that subject. Lots of weird exceptions that the author throws at us at the end of chapter 2. The last thing she gives to us is at the very bottom of this worksheet are some puzzlers. And I like her puzzler questions. I think they're really interesting. They're at the very end of each chapter under the category called questions for discussion. And I always encourage you to take a look at them at the end of the chapter just to kind of get ready for your first test or any test that we have. All right, so that's the last thing we'll take a look at are those 2 puzzler questions.